Brace yourself for the truth Ferrari doesn't want you to see. While the headlines called it a solid day in Bahrain, something far more serious was unfolding behind the scenes. Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time world champion, didn't leave the cockpit satisfied. He left it alerted. This wasn't just another test session. This wasn't about lap times or positions on the timing sheets. What Hamilton uncovered inside the SF-26 goes far deeper, and it could force Ferrari into uncomfortable decisions before the season even begins. Sources inside the paddock suggest that data coming from Bahrain raised red flags the public hasn't seen yet. Telemetry patterns, balanced responses, subtle behaviours that don't show up on TV graphics, but screen warnings to a driver of Hamilton's calibre. Ferrari insists everything is under control. Progress, fine-tuning, direction. But Hamilton's reactions tell a different story. This is not frustration. This is not adaptation pain. This is a champion drawing a line, because when Lewis Hamilton stops smiling and starts asking hard technical questions, it's never random, it's calculated. And this time, what he discovered could reshape Ferrari's entire approach to the SF-26, and that's where the real story begins. Inside the most restricted corners of Bahrain, while the world watched timing screens and polite interviews, a very different story was unfolding. What looked like a routine, solid day on the surface was, in reality, a deep diagnostic session for Lewis Hamilton. Every lap mattered, every braking zone, every steering correction. Hamilton wasn't just driving the SF-26, he was interrogating it. 44 laps became 44 questions, and not all of them had comfortable answers. While Ferrari focused on mileage and reliability, Hamilton pushed further. He experimented. He provoked reactions from the car. He intentionally placed the SF-26 in situations that expose weakness mid-corner, instability, throttle response inconsistencies, balance shifts that only elite drivers can feel. This wasn't impatience, this wasn't overreaction, this was intent. Hamilton has been through this before. He knows when a car is hiding limitations behind acceptable behaviour. And Bahrain, with its abrasive surface and mixed corner profiles, is the perfect place to force truth out of machinery. Behind closed doors, his feedback became sharper, more precise, less diplomatic, because what he felt on track didn't fully align with the narrative being built outside the garage. And when a champion starts separating public optimism from private concern, it's a sign that something important has already been identified, and long before anyone else notices. The question behind the smiles began to grow after 44 intense laps. The public message was calm, progress, learning, fine margins. But internally, the tone shifted. Lewis Hamilton didn't settle for good enough. He pushed past reassurance and went straight to the uncomfortable zone, because what Hamilton felt wasn't failure, it was misalignment. The SF-26 responded, it improved, it showed flashes of potential, but certain behaviours repeated themselves. Subtle balance shifts, inconsistent confidence under load, characteristics that don't break lap times immediately and do but destroy trust over a race distance. That's when the real pressure began. Hamilton knows the difference between adaptation time and structural compromise. One can be learned, the other must be corrected. And Bahrain was sending mixed signals. The car was faster, but not always honest. Ferrari tried to frame it as refinement, normal development, expected evolution. Hamilton wasn't convinced. His feedback became more direct, less filtered. Because champions don't wait for problems to become visible, they act when the warning signs are still quiet. This wasn't dissatisfaction, this was prevention. And when a driver of Hamilton's experience refuses to accept early comfort, it usually means he sees a risk others are still ignoring, one that could explode once the season begins. The data didn't lie, and that's where things got uncomfortable. On the surface, the statements were positive, progress, better feeling, direction, but beneath the polished words, telemetry told a far more complex story, and Lewis Hamilton saw it immediately. Certain patterns repeated themselves across stints, balanced traces that looked stable on paper, yet translated into hesitation behind the wheel. Low transitions that demanded constant correction. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious. But to an elite driver, these are early warnings, not noise. Hamilton felt better in the car, yes, but better didn't mean right. That contradiction is where tension was born. Publicly, optimism remained. Privately, questions multiplied. Why did confidence drop in specific phases? Why did consistency fluctuate when it shouldn't? Why did the SF-26 require adaptation instead of rewarding precision? Engineers analysed, simulations were cross-checked, explanations were offered. Hamilton listened and pushed back because this wasn't about speed alone, it was about trust. And trust, once compromised, costs championships long before lap times expose the problem. What looked like a minor imbalance to many felt like a structural warning to one driver in particular, and Hamilton wasn't willing to let it slide under the banner of early testing. The tension wasn't emotional, it was technical, and it was growing. This was the moment everything changed. After reviewing the data, replaying sensations, and comparing long-run behaviour, Lewis Hamilton reached a conclusion champions don't take lightly. The SF-26 wasn't just asking to be driven differently when it was asking to be changed. Behind closed doors, Hamilton made his position clear. The balance issue wasn't cosmetic. It wasn't something that would disappear with familiarity. It was a directional problem, so one that could limit race day confidence if left untouched, and that's when the challenge was issued. Hamilton didn't demand speed, he demanded correction. Telemetry showed areas where compromise had become acceptable, where adaptation was being used as a substitute for resolution, and Hamilton refused that logic because adapting to a flaw only hides it until pressure exposes everything. This wasn't rebellion, this wasn't ego, this was leadership. By pushing for adjustments now, Hamilton forced Ferrari into a critical decision window: change direction while there's time, or protect the concept and risk carrying limitations into the season. The message was unmistakable: fix it now or pay for it later. And once that line is drawn by a 7-time world champion, ignoring it becomes far more dangerous than acting on it. The challenge didn't end at the data room door. Once Lewis Hamilton made his stance clear, the ripple effect inside Ferrari was immediate. Engineers didn't panic, but the room changed. Conversations slowed, priorities shifted. What was once acceptable for now suddenly became urgent, because when Hamilton speaks this early, it's not noise, it's timing. Ferrari now faced an uncomfortable fork in the road. Stay committed to the current philosophy and hope adaptation solves the rest, or intervene, adjust key parameters, and risk destabilising a concept still being validated. Neither option is safe. Both carry consequences. What made the moment critical wasn't confrontation, it was credibility. Hamilton wasn't speculating, he wasn't guessing. He brought repeatable patterns, correlated feedback, evidence that something fundamental needed attention. And that puts pressure not on mechanics, but on leadership. Every adjustment now has a political weight. Change too much and the project looks flawed. Change too little and the warning gets ignored. Ferrari must choose where conviction ends and stubbornness begins. Inside the garage, the message was clear without being spoken aloud. This season will not be decided by optimism. It will be decided by who listens and who delays. This is where seasons quietly fall apart. If Ferrari chooses comfort over correction, the consequences won't explode immediately. They never do. The danger hides in plain sight, masked by acceptable results, early optimism and controlled messaging. But Lewis Hamilton knows this pattern too well. A car that demands constant adaptation drains confidence. A car that forces compromise punishes consistency. And a car that doesn't reward precision eventually exposes its ceiling, usually when championships are already slipping away. The SF-26 isn't broken, that's the problem, because almost right cars are the most dangerous. They delay decisive action, they convince teams to wait one race too long, one upgrade too late, and by the time the flaw becomes obvious, the calendar offers no mercy. Hamilton sees that risk now, not in headlines, not in lap charts, but in how the car behaves when pushed beyond comfort. Ignore it and Ferrari risks building an entire season around managed limitation. Address it and they risk short-term disruption for long-term control. This is the gamble, this is the pressure, and this is why the coming days matter far more than any test result, because once the season begins, the window to choose disappears. So now the question is simple: and uncomfortable. Will Ferrari listen while there's still time, or will it protect a concept that already shows cracks beneath the surface? Because Lewis Hamilton didn't raise concerns to make noise, he did it to force a decision. Change now while the cost is manageable, or delay, and risk discovering the limit when the championship is already slipping away. This isn't about loyalty, it's not about ego, it's about whether Ferrari is willing to let its newest leader shape the car, not just drive it. History is clear. Teams that act early survive pressure. Teams that wait end up explaining missed opportunities. And Hamilton has seen both sides of that story beat more than once. So what happens next defines more than a set-up choice. It defines authority, direction and trust. Does Ferrari adapt to Hamilton's warning, or does Hamilton adapt to Ferrari's hesitation? Now it's your turn. Drop your theory in the comments. Who's right in this battle, Hamilton or Ferrari? And if you were in the garage, what would you change first? Because this season won't be decided on Sundays alone. It's being decided right now.